Today, we've got a lot to talk about: Raiders news, NFL news, and some updates that could impact our team. I've got plenty of thoughts on all of it, so let's dive right in. Breaking news. According to Vincent Bonsignore, a well-connected insider for the Las Vegas Raiders, the team is actively shopping tight end Michael Mayer. Bonsignore, who is a trusted source when it comes to Raiders updates, reported that multiple teams have been doing their research on Mayer. He also confirmed that several sources indicate the Raiders are exploring trade options for the third-year tight end. Now, we actually heard rumors about this last week, but this time, it's coming from a more reliable source. And when Vincent Bonsignore reports something, it's usually legit. So, what does this mean? It tells me that new GM John Spytek has taken a good look at the roster, had conversations with head coach Chip Kelly, and decided that Mayer might be more valuable to another team than to the Raiders. This also gives us insight into Chip Kelly's offensive plans. It seems like he doesn't plan to run a lot of two tight end sets. Instead, he likely sees rookie Brock Bowers as the primary tight end in his system. What do you guys think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. So, if the Raiders move on from Michael Mayer, what does that mean for their offense? Chip Kelly's system seems to favor spreading the field with more wide receivers rather than relying on two tight end sets. That tells me he doesn't see Mayer as a key piece moving forward. Now let's go back to when Mayer was drafted. Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler were so high on him that they traded up to get him, believing they landed the best tight end in the draft. At the time, it seemed like a steal. He was the third tight end taken, and many thought he had the potential to be special. But fast forward to now, and things haven't worked out. His rookie year was rough, and while he showed flashes in his second season, he missed time and never truly lived up to expectations. At Notre Dame, Mayer looked dominant, but that same impact hasn't translated to the NFL. Even in his final college season, he wasn't as impressive as he had been earlier. So, what's his trade value now? Honestly, it's not great. He was a high second-round pick, but at this point, a fourth-round pick might be the best return the Raiders can get. Teams watching his tape see a player who struggles to separate, and with a deep tight end class in the upcoming draft, some teams might prefer taking a rookie over trading for Mayer. That being said, the Raiders could still keep him. If no team offers a decent return, it might make sense to hold on to him. He may never be worth his original draft pick, but he's a solid run blocker and could still contribute in a limited role, even if it's just 15 snaps a game. One last thing to consider: Chip Kelly's offense relies more on five-man pass protection, meaning tight end blocking won't be as important. That could be another reason why Mayer no longer fits the Raiders' plans. We'll see how this plays out, but his future in Vegas is definitely up in the air. What do you guys think? Should the Raiders keep him, or is it time to move on? Let me know in the comments. Free agency is just around the corner, and we're already seeing teams make moves. This is the time when trades start heating up, rumors flood in, and big decisions are made. But today, we're not just talking about speculation. We've got actual moves happening. One of the biggest stories of the day: the Cincinnati Bengals have franchise tagged Tee Higgins for the second straight year. That means Higgins is set to make $26 million this season. Now, what does this tag really mean? The Bengals could be tagging him with the intent to trade. Maybe it won't happen this week, but at some point this year, they might move him to a team that's desperate for a high-caliber wide receiver. One thing's for sure: the Bengals aren't just letting him walk for nothing. A talent like Higgins, they want a return. Speaking of Higgins, let's talk about his value. He's one of the best X-receivers in the NFL, a guy who can beat double teams, dominate in press coverage, and punish defenses in single coverage. He's got the size, strength, and skill to be a true game changer. Some Raiders fans wanted him in Vegas, and while he'd definitely be an upgrade, the cost is a big factor. Should the Raiders trade for Tee Higgins? On paper, Higgins would be a great fit, especially since the Raiders need another top receiver. But here's the issue: he's going to cost upwards of $30 million per year on a new deal. Unless the Bengals are willing to move him for something like a fifth-round pick, trading for him doesn't make a lot of sense. The Raiders could also find a talented X receiver in the upcoming draft, like Tedairoa McMillan or a few others who fit that role. Alex Kappa's release, a Raiders target. Another big move today, the Bengals released guard Alex Kappa, and Raiders fans are buzzing about it. But honestly, I don't get the hype. Multiple beat writers are talking about him like he's a game changer, but let's be real, he's a solid lineman, not an elite one. Kappa was originally drafted by Tampa Bay and had a strong run there before joining the Bengals. But last season, he took a big step back, allowing 7 or 8 sacks. He's not a dominant force, and he's certainly not a bully in the trenches. That's exactly what the Raiders need, physical linemen who impose their will. Look at what the Carolina Panthers built on their O-line. They brought in guys like Ika Mekwonu, Damian Lewis, and Robert Hunt. These were physical maulers, and when they played the Raiders, they pushed them around all game. The Raiders need that kind of toughness up front, and Kappa doesn't fit the bill. If the Raiders bring in Kappa and pair him with guys like Jordan Meredith and Dylan Parham, they're still missing that aggressive, dominant presence. So while fans might want him, spending $5 to $6 million on a lineman who doesn't truly move the needle? Not the best idea. The Raiders have a lot of decisions to make in free agency, but they need to be smart. T. Higgins is a star, but is he worth the cost? Alex Kappa is a solid player, but does he bring the toughness this O-line needs? What do you guys think? Should the Raiders make a move for Higgins? Should they pass on Kappa? Drop your thoughts in the comments. For the Raiders, building a dominant offensive line should be a priority. Right now, they have Jackson Paris-Johnson, which is a solid start, but DJ Glaze might not be the long-term solution at right tackle. While he deserves another season to prove himself, he could also shift to guard if needed. The key is to add a true enforcer at the other guard spot, a player who can dominate in the trenches rather than just hold his position. This draft class has several intriguing options. Players like Anthony Belton and Charles Grant stand out as versatile linemen who could play both guard and tackle, though they might be better suited to start at tackle first. Bringing in players with that level of physicality would help transform the Raiders' offensive line into a unit that can dictate the game rather than just react to it. The issue with signing someone like Alex Kappa is that he's not a dominant force up front. When Kappa engages a player like Chris Jones, the result is often a stalemate rather than a decisive win for the offense. That's not enough. The Raiders need linemen who don't just hold their ground but push defenders backward. With a player like Paris-Johnson, for example, when he makes contact, he moves defenders off their spot, creating real running lanes. That's the kind of physicality the team needs. This year's draft class is deep with talented interior offensive linemen. Will Campbell, despite measuring well, is likely better suited as a guard than a tackle. Josh Simmons, though his measurements were underwhelming, still has a chance to stick at tackle but could shift inside if needed. Donovan Jackson played guard but showed promise at left tackle when Josh Simmons went down for Ohio State. Similarly, Josh Conerly may end up as a guard as well. In fact, many of the top 10 tackle prospects in this class could realistically move inside at the next level. Players like Anthony Belton, Josh Simmons, and Josh Conerly have the potential to remain tackles, but their exact roles will depend on how teams evaluate them leading up to the draft. Charles Grant, who played left tackle for William & Mary, is another candidate likely to transition to guard in the NFL. The lack of clear-cut tackle prospects makes this draft particularly interesting, as teams will have to decide which players fit best at guard or tackle. Another key development today was the release of veteran cornerback Darius Slay. Some Raiders fans are wondering whether the team should pursue him, given the secondary struggles last season. While it's true the Raiders had issues in pass defense, it's important to remember how injuries impacted their overall defensive performance. Last season, the Raiders' defense was severely banged up. Malcolm Kunze, who was expected to be a major contributor, was lost for the season. Christian Wilkins, a high-priced addition, managed to play only 5 or 6 games before being ruled out. Even Max Crosby missed the final third of the season, which was a massive blow to the pass rush. These injuries forced the secondary to cover for longer than they should have, leading to breakdowns in coverage. Additionally, there has been criticism of Jack Jones, with some questioning whether he is a starting caliber cornerback. However, that assessment might be premature. When given the chance, Jones showed flashes of being a legitimate starter. The Raiders might not need to make a big move at cornerback if they believe in his development.